It was an offseason that we will all remember. And in the final season of the Pac-12 as we know it, comes season 3 of the It Factory. It will be full of players that are on preseason watch lists, will be on future NFL draft lists. As always, we will take the helmet off of the top players on the West Coast and tap into who they are and why they stand out. I'm Yogi Roth, and welcome back to the It Factory. It's season 3. Welcome back, or welcome to the It Factory. I am Yogi Roth. It is week 0. We have week 0 football. I will be in a stadium in Los Angeles, yes, the Coliseum, for that week 0 matchup. USC, San Jose State, and in Northern California will be today's guest. It had to be. There was not even an option. Yes, Ashley Adamson, the face of the Pac-12 Network, this league heading into year 12. Ashley, you've been on many shows with me many times, but we've never done this one on this podcast. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to make my It Factory debut, and it's been, a pretty quiet off season, so I'm not sure what you want to talk about, but I'm up for whatever topic you want to go for, Yogs.
Well, as you know, as a valued listener, I know you've rated and reviewed and shared this
100%.
Series many times. Yes, of course. You're right. It has been an offseason unlike any other in college football, and specifically in this league. Over 100 years of this league existing, it will change as we have grown to know it, and many of you have grown to love it. We started on the same day 12 years ago, and I thought it would just be appropriate in episode 1. We usually have athletes and coaches on, or personalities who played in this league. I want to bring you on, though, because I wanted to have a conversation about what we went through as a collective, what you went through individually, what I went through individually, and kind of speak to the fans of this league, our colleagues who listen and watch this show, and just have a candid conversation as we crank into the football season in 2023.
I've been asked however many times over the last few weeks, like, how are you doing? And I'm sure you've gotten that question a lot too. And people aren't here to listen to how I'm doing and how you're doing. But I just want to say, number one, I'm grateful that we get a chance to have this conversation and a chance to talk through this and to actually articulate, I think, what some of the people are feeling behind the scenes of the monumental shift that has happened over the past, month or so. So I will just say that we have done hundreds of interviews together on a million different platforms. We talk about football and family and life and our parents and our kids, like every topic, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that we'd be sitting down to do an interview together, with the reality of the demise of the league that we have loved, as the main talking point that's been swirling over the last several weeks. And I think the reality of the situation that we're in has settled in. They say there's 5 or 7 stages of grief. I feel like I've been through 30 or 35. But I think the reality is, and what's important about this conversation today and why I'm excited to have it, is that there is a way forward. I keep thinking about David Shaw's philosophy of radical acceptance. And that is one of the most probably critical things that we can all do right now. Yesterday is gone. What is available to us is today, and spending time and emotion on anything else, it's a waste of energy. The world's moving too fast, but there is a lot to celebrate. There is a lot to dive into. And I know that coming into this year, there's going to be a lot of emotions, but mostly the one that I'm holding on to is gratitude for what I've been able to do with you and a lot of people we love for the last 11 plus years.
Yeah, well said. I mean, look, I believe this, that humans are made to move, and we move through things. And we've got a lot of examples of challenging moments in our careers with the teams that we cover on and off the field, right? You did a documentary on Utah. They lost 2 teammates. And Kyle Whittingham continually said, and still does, we're going to work our way through this thing. And I think for us, everybody experienced an element of loss. But to your point, and really what I've learned in my training camp tour, now heading into week 0 in our first game, you're going to open up this amazing studio in Northern California. I'm going to call the game with Ted Robinson from the booth, is that the games, like when you get to the games, God, it doesn't feel like any of the stuff off the field, any of the business, any of the rights, any of the conference realignment, like it really doesn't matter. And I've been on this kick on the phrase chase what matters for the last 6-8 months or so. And it's a version of radical acceptance, to your point, from David Shaw. And when you chase what matters, you got great clarity in what matters most. Like great clarity in what matters most. Now, people in collegiate athletics and in the business of collegiate athletics, what matters most to them versus what we think matters most. Clearly, everybody has a differing opinion when it comes to that. But if you can chase what matters, which is, to me, is the game and the players, and then two, if you can have confidence within that and not just say it to say it, but if you really believe that the games are what matter most, the stories you get to elicit and share are what matter most, if you can say it with confidence, then you just got to be disciplined. And I think that's the hard part, because it's going to be very easy for us to go to stadiums this year and feel nostalgic, which we should, and also feel sad, which we will. But then to your point, like, how can you take that emotion, whatever you feel, deal with it, acknowledge it, and keep it moving? Because there is some beautiful things to celebrate. So I just say all that because I'm kind of curious for you. You've talked to a lot of our colleagues and teammates. You've talked to a lot of coaches like I have and players. What have you felt as we move into game week of where people were when the shock happened to now where we are when the games are about to happen?
Well, the best thing that's going to happen is that we are going to play football very soon, and we know what to do when the football games start, right? I think it's been messy leading up to, and we've been in this, we call it liminal space, which is a term that I have appreciated, and I've come to find out much more about what it's meant because we've been kind of living in it for the last year, where you're not in the old, but you're not in the new, and you're not sure what the next iteration version of your life is going to look like, and whether that's personal and professional. Everybody has spent time in liminal space. And I will say the message that I have given directly to our colleagues and our friends on, every campus that I've talked to, I refuse to let this season feel like a funeral procession, Yogi. We have a right to feel heartbroken and devastated about how some things went down. I think we're still looking around, for myself personally, still in a little bit of disbelief. But what we do have, what we get to have, is another season, another football season, another basketball season, another spring sports season to cover these incredible young people who are what it's all about. I mean, and I think that the last thing I'll say about that is that very few people in the industry that you and I work in get to know where the finish line is. Like, so often when the lights go off, your key card doesn't work, and that's see you later. We get to embrace one more season of things this way. And then who knows what's going to happen after that. And there'll be a lot of change, and it'll look a lot different no matter what it is. But my message to them is like, let's find those moments of joy whenever and wherever we can, and not take a single moment of it for granted. And if we're not having the most fun in the history of fun, to borrow one of your phrases, this year, then we're not doing it right. So, and I think it's going to be easy, because once those games kick off, I think this has a chance to be one of the best seasons this league has ever had, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Where are you at on all this, Yogs?
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit of everything. I think the one commonality is that every school, fan, coach I've talked to, for the most part, like, nobody necessarily wanted this to happen, right? Like, because even the sport is in limbo. Like, is it super leagues or is it like kind of super leagues? Like, I think we're in like the gray right now. Should we just go back to like a BCS championship and just have two teams play at the end? Should we just have 4 play in the current CFP system? Thankfully, it's ending this year because of the power conferences and the shift within it. Or, hey, no, let's keep it at 12. This could be fun, because by the time this thing airs and people watch it or listen to it, there might be another league that none of us even know about as of now. So I think the sport is in the gray. So where I'm at is like, I'm okay being there, right? And I'm just trying to be connected to that. It's the overused phrase that everybody hears all the time, but like the be where your feet are element. I think it's really important. Like, here's the illustration, because it went viral and people probably know. I think it's a NBA playoff game, and it's Phil Knight sitting underneath the basket on the baseline, and every fan has their phone out, and he's just kind of kicking it. And I think there's something to that where, like, you and I will want to record every moment of this season that is about to kick off, but there's also something really beautiful to being connected to it. And I believe this when I call games, Ash, is I turn my phone off, I put it aside, I check it at halftime, and that's it. Just if there's injury updates from like an SID, but like truly being even more connected to the games, to the campuses you're going to go visit, to the segments that we get to do, to the features we produce. I'm just in that mode. I'm not saying I'm over it, and I feel for everybody involved, because we're all impacted. You have a family, I have a family, our 200 colleagues have families, and decisions will have to be made. But I also look at the work we've done, and while maybe everyone in the world hasn't seen it who has liked to see it, the reality is that the work has been really good. And the people in graphics are top of the line in graphics, and our camera operators on game day crush as camera operators, and the people in programming thrive in programming, and on and on and on. So I think there's something to that where I'm feeling kind of confident, to your point of the liminal space of we're all going to land somewhere great. We don't know where. So we might as well enjoy the best year that this league has ever had in terms of at least preseason. We got 5 teams in the top 20, top 18 in the AP preseason, top 25. And I think UCLA, after watching them a week ago, should be in the top 25. So we've got all the quarterbacks coming back. 6 guys returned 3,000 yards. Shedeur Sanders, DJ Uiagalelei, among others who transfer in. Battles that are still not done yet at the quarterback spot, let alone new coaches, old coaches, Utah last dance vibes. Like, there are storylines everywhere. And I think if we sit and sulk in what we don't have control over, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it. And I know you won't miss it. And I'm going to compete to not miss it. And that's what I wanted this conversation to be about. To those listening, like, don't miss it. You could be pissed that your league is not what you fell in love with in the Pac-8, Nick Aliotti, Pac-10. That's when I went into the league, or the Pac-12 when you and I met. Or you can say, you know what? All right, I don't like it. That's okay. Let's throw it down and let's really compete to be disciplined to crush the enjoyment of the season. Because it's not like we got to manufacture storylines, Ash. For the first time in a while, we don't have to throw down on this league. Like, this league throws down within and of itself.
Beautifully said, Yogi. I co-sign on all of that. And, you know, where my heart also immediately goes to are all of the student athletes, coaches, support staff, athletic administrators, and students in general of the 4 schools who, as of this recording, are trying to figure out what to do. Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State. I mean, the conference as we know it isn't going to exist anymore, but I can't imagine, and I've talked to a lot of the different people on those campuses, what the uncertainty is like for them. And I think, to go back to, just the final point of, like, I haven't exactly figured out what I'm going to say when we open our very first studio show this Saturday at 4:00 Pacific time. I'll figure that out between now and then. But once kickoff happens at the Coliseum and you and Ted Robinson are on the call, I will have the biggest smile on my face. All will feel right in the world. And we will know what to do in that moment. We will know how to, as you say, celebrate the game, coach the viewer, share the stories of all of these young people who, by the way, chose to play in the Pac-12. So that is the focus. And I think you're right. Don't miss it. Don't miss it, because it will go by fast. And this has a chance to be one of the most memorable special years. I keep telling everyone, it's like senior year of high school or college. It's all going to be different. We're all going to be going different places, but we get this last year together, and let's have a good time. Let's enjoy it. Give these student athletes what they deserve.
All right. So who do you think has it figured out this year? Like, you always ask me this question in the season. We'll do content all year long. But you ask me, and I love flipping this one on you, of like, what are you most confident in?
I would say, in terms of a team and a staff, there are 2 that immediately come to mind. I want to say, first and foremost, I don't know if we have called it out, but you and I both voted for Washington to win the conference. If I recall correctly, you also were one of the 4 votes for UW. And it was hard. I think the top 4 were a toss-up, right? USC was actually picked to win the league, and I understand why. But to me, I feel confident in Washington because of who they have and who that coaching staff has proven to be and who they are bringing back. But I got to go. The one thing that I feel like I'm the most sure of is Utah. Kyle Whittingham, going into year number 19, what he has been able to build there. Everything is about culture. That's the most overused word, on the planet, especially when it comes to sports. But they have a culture that is led by their alpha quarterback, Cam Rising, who, for a fact, he wouldn't say it on the media because he's well-trained and knows, and he's not going to give anybody locker room material, but for a fact that had to bother him that he was not on any of the pre-conference, all Pac-12 teams, not even honorable mention. And he's the 2-time defending Pac-12 quarterback of the year. He had 2 back-to-back Rose Bowl appearances in which he got knocked out of both of those and injured, and you wonder what would have happened if he had been able to stay healthy. So what his knee is going to be like after that ACL injury, I don't know, but all systems point to, and all signs point to, that until someone else can prove otherwise, Utah is still the team to beat in this league. And Kyle Whittingham has the staff and the leaders in that locker room, not to mention a talent, and the continuity, which I think we got to forget sometimes, Yogi, I feel like it's so often that we forget that we're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds. And that is a crazy time in people's lives. When I look around and think about everything that they're dealing with, having continuity of staff, knowing what is expected of you, it's one of the most important things. And so that is why when I look and say, okay, what do I know? I feel like it's Utah. What about you? What are you most confident in?
It's amazing. So, and to kind of take people behind the curtain a little bit, we've shared this before, but like when you go into a production meeting on a campus, you walk out being like, they're going to win. You just believe it, So like you could talk to anyone, and you and I have talked to everybody in the league over the course of training camp. And every time you hang up with, whether it's Kalen DeBoer or Jonathan Smith or Chip Kelly or Jed Fish or Dan Lanning, you're like, dude, they're rolling the table. Like, of course, this team's going to win. So that makes it hard because I think we're both emotional beings in that regard. And I definitely am. Like, I can go down that rabbit hole. I can't wait to hear it. And then the tape is what tells the truth. And that's always the differentiator. Well, now we have none. We just have what we had a year ago. So you're right. You have to go to like, what are the constants? And it's hard for me to look at teams that have had dramatic turnover to feel like I believe in that most, because I don't know it. I don't know what Arizona State, Stanford, Colorado, I have no clue what they're going to look at. Was it Arizona State's practice? Love what I saw, but you still haven't seen it in a game. Arizona, love their growth on defense. What's it going to look like in a game? You can kind of go down the teams. You start to nitpick a little bit of like, what, to your point, what do I trust the most? And I want to say Oregon State or Utah. Like, that's where my head goes. I picked UW to win the league, as you referenced. To me, what I don't have the most confidence in right now is I don't know what Cam Rising we're going to see. And that's the only reason I didn't pick Utah to win the league. I just don't know if he's going to be back or not. And we asked him this on stage at Media Days, where we said something along the lines of, like, you can be cleared, but are you in your mind clear to go play? And I think what's great for Utah fans is that he's been through injuries before. So he knows how to, clean the mechanism, per se. Kevin Costner movie. If you're a baseball fan, you'll know that homage right there. But the point being, that's to me the biggest question mark. And I think to me, I want to know eventually like who you pick to play Washington in the title game. But to me, when I look at the schedule, I went to Oregon State. So I really trust them, and Utah, I'd say kind of a toss-up, but that's what makes this league hard. And I think when you pick the teams, you have to look at who they play. Because I think there's elements of teams that we believe in the most. O-line at Oregon State, believe in it. Playmakers at USC, no-brainer. Defense, Utah, check. Defense, Oregon State, check. Running back, Oregon, check. I know you love the backs at Washington State, check. Like, that's what's going to make it fun. It's going to make it such a joy. So for you, when you think about, because you're going to be on the road pretty much every week, but this opening week, because it's week 0 and there's only one game, where do you like kind of get juiced up to go? Or is there an experience that is different than the others when you hit the road, or is everybody kind of like your favorite child in the moment, where it's just that perfect date, that perfect breakfast date with Collins, if you want to call it that, your son.
And I was also going to jump in. I'm glad you hit on Oregon, because I'm like, we're going through who we believe in, what we believe in. By the way, Bo Nix and the Ducks, there's a lot to believe in up in Eugene. And every time I spend time with Dan Lanning, I'm like, I want to go play for that guy. Like, I don't know. Yeah. He's got, I know this is the it factor, like whatever the it factor is, which I think we'll talk about later, Dan Lanning's got it. And so does Bo Nix. So I'm excited to see them this year. In terms of where I like to go, I know it sounds like and we don't have to be politically correct anymore of like, no, we love all 12 of our children the same, like this. No, I do. Every campus that I go to, I'm like, man, there's something different. There's something unique. There's a person or a friend that I get to see, whether on campus or that just lives in the area. There's a restaurant I'm always excited to go to. And I think that when I literally think about all the 12 different cities that we get to go to and towns that we get to go to, they're all unique in their own way. And even people roll their eyes at me when I say this, but I love going to Pullman, Washington. Like, I Love it. The people up there are top notch, and it just feels like a family. I every time I go up there, I'm so happy when it's time to come to go to the Palouse. So there is not a single, you know, there's not one single one that I can pull out and say that's my favorite spot. I mean, obviously going back to Boulder, which I grew up going to Buffs games and grew up not too far from there. So there's a nostalgia there. And I'll always say that that's God's country. And, the air is just different out there, all the rest. But I love them all. I really do, for different reasons. And they are all so unique. What about you? Do you have now you have to actually answer that question
Yeah.
since I gave the PC version.
If it's equal, if everybody's sold out and it's just bonkers there, I also go to like the experience of calling the game versus like walking through a tailgate. Like the experience of calling a game at each place, I'll say A is different, right? Some booths are Arizona State, you're up way high, right? At Cal, you got a perfect perch, right? At UW, a perfect perch. But I'd probably go Autzen. If it's bonkers there, like it just goes crazy. They start singing the song, you know what it is. You got the video with Marcus and everybody from Animal House. Like I'd probably lean there, but to your point, I love Pullman. I'm trying to convince my family to go to Pullman this year. I loved Arizona sold out with DJ Scooter at the 50. You really can make a case, and I say even as a broadcaster for the craft, I get the chills, especially going to UCLA, because you walk in, it's the Keith Jackson broadcast booth. The Kirk Herbstreit, they renamed it the broadcast booth as well. So you see both of their faces. You walk in, and when that place is full, which I know it's been a minute, but when that place is full, there's something about being in LA at the Rose Bowl, growing up watching the Rose Bowl and going to 20-some straight Rose Bowls. Like, I'll probably net out there. All right, we're going to net out. We're going to get you out of here. That's the final five because you listen. So you got to come correct here. The final five for Ashley Adamson, the Hall of Famer from Mullen High School, who loves the air in Colorado. Question number one, what is the best advice you've ever received?
When in doubt, work on yourself. It's really easy when things are hard to feel like, oh, there's got to be somebody else or something else or who's responsible for what. But anytime you're not sure, when in doubt, work on yourself. Best advice I've gotten.
Worst advice you've gotten?
Try the fried rattlesnake. I was told that it would taste like chicken. Fried rattlesnake does not taste like chicken.
Yeah. Okay. Good advice. Not going to go down either one of those roads. Number three, you picked Washington to go to the 2023 Pac-12 title game at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Who will they meet in that stadium?
USC.
Ooh, rematch from the Collie. I like it. Okay. All right. Copy, paste, hold on to it for early December. Number four, you know the title of this show is The It Factory. I believe that the it factor is the most overused and undefinable phrase in sport, but when you see it, you know it. Like you can just tell. You have it. I've worked with you for over a decade now. How would you describe your own personal it factor?
This is one of my favorite questions that you ask, and I always love hearing the various answers. And I've heard a lot of people describe, having the it factor as relating to charisma, like that sort of ability to get people to like you and draw people in. But to me, Yogi, the people who truly have the it factor are the people who embody the opposite of that. There's a term called inverse charisma, and it's a term that I learned from Adam Grant. And it's this idea that you are able to see and draw out the best in other people, making other people see their own worth. And the idea is that, like, by listening with such curiosity, such attentiveness, that you bring out the best version of other people. And to me, that's the it factor. The best leaders, the best athletes that I've been around, all of them have inverse charisma. It's making the people around you better.
Wow. All right. You definitely have that. So put that cap on right now. And our final question. I want you to finish this sentence, but I want you to direct it at your 200 plus colleagues that you work at. And if we were going to hold on to this as the year went on, what would you say as you complete the following sentence? It all comes down to.
It all comes down to love. As far as I can tell, that's why we're here. That's probably the biggest high-minded thing. But I will do an and. It all comes down to love and joy and finding simple joys. So that's what I'm going to focus on this year. I have so much love and adoration for the people we work with and the teams and the people that we cover. And I'm going to find a lot of joy over the next 9 months in celebrating that.
Ashley, as always, enjoy the dialogue. Usually you're the driver of our conversation. It's
This
been
is
fun
way
to
better.
flip it up. Oh, yeah. It's easier, right? It's easier to
So
be
much
the
easier. I didn't have to
analyst.
prep it. Yeah, I just show up, sit down. No,
Killing
this
it.
was great. This was the cheapest therapy session that I've ever had. So feel free to send me an invoice. But this was great, Yogs. I you know how I feel about you. You've got the it factor, and I am so excited for this season and all that it's going to bring.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be a blast. Well, thanks for bringing it. We'll see you on the road. We got week 0 coming up. Thanks for watching this. Share it with your friends. You can check it out at pac-12.com/insider, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also throwing them on YouTube this year, so you can find Ashley there as well. And follow Ashley Adamson, Ashley, on every platform under the sun. As we get rolling here, Ash, how great is ball? Pac-12 season 2023.